Leo Varon pressed his palm against the cold metal bulkhead of the labor compound, every joint in his bones aching from another 12-hour shift in the subterranean mines. Once, this rocky underbelly had hummed with the promise of fortune, pristine ores destined for Earth's burgeoning space industry. Now, under Alvarite rule, it felt like a tomb. Neon panels flickered overhead, the only light for miles of slick tunnels carved into the ancient bedrock. He glanced at the guard stationed by the lift shaft, a tall Alvari with silver-blue skin and eyes that seemed to calculate the weight of Leo's very soul. The guard spat at Leo's boots, half in contempt, half in boredom. Leo offered a tight, bitter smile. In the days since the occupation began, it had become impossible even to find a spark of rebellion in another human face. "Move," the Alvari guard rasped. His clawed hand pressed down on Leo's shoulder, nearly driving him to his knees. An electric thrill shot through Leo's chest. His vision darkened for a heartbeat, and he barely caught himself before collapsing, fingers digging into the coarse floor. The guard snarled and grabbed Leo by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Yet when the guard squeezed, his grip shattered, bones snapping, flesh tearing so soundlessly that Leo barely registered the change. The guard flew backward, limbs splayed at unnatural angles, his body hitting the floor in a crumpled heap. Leo stumbled back, wide-eyed, a tremor rippling through him like an earthquake. Around him, the other prisoners froze. No one moved. No one dared breathe. Then Leo's eyes flared, golden embers glowing beneath his lashes. The air thickened, humming with a power neither the Alvari nor the humans in the camp understood. Overhead lights flickered, sparks cascading down like metallic rain. "What have you done?" a guard captain hissed, stepping from the shadows. His voice trembled with astonishment and fear. "Kill him." But when the captain raised his weapon, it snapped in two, as if made of brittle clay. The guard captain fell back, eyes wide, uncomprehending. Behind Leo, miners began to rise to their feet, fists clenched. They felt it too, that ancient roar in their blood, a memory of wars fought before recorded time, of galaxies subdued by hands like theirs. A low rumble shook the compound. Walls cracked. The ceiling groaned. The prisoners surged forward, drawn by an instinct older than civilization itself. Fear fled their faces, replaced by something dark, resolute, terrible. Leo raised a trembling hand. The trembling energy around him sharpened, condensed into shards of shining light that hummed like living things. He exhaled, and the shards rocketed toward the guard captain. The blast tore through armor and bone in one silent instant. Moments later, Leo stood amid the wreckage of the guard station, his breath ragged, heart pounding in his ears. He scarcely recognized the power coursing through him, yet it felt utterly familiar, like an echo of a life he had never lived. "Leo," a voice called. It was Marisol Dunn, an old friend from before the occupation. Her face was streaked with soot and tears, but her eyes burned with hope. "This is just the beginning." He watched as she reached out, and the other prisoners formed around them. No orders, no strategy, just a shared realization, the humans had awoken. Outside, the compound door split under mounting pressure. Leo took a step forward, golden light still flickering around his fingertips. Behind him, dozens of miners, scientists, former office workers, all of them touched by the same ancient force, stormed the gate. And in that second, Leo understood. Humans had not just learned of their hidden legacy, they had become its living heralds. The Alvari might have conquered the world, but they had awakened an ancient warrior race sleeping just beneath the surface of every human heart. Tonight, fear would die, and the galaxy would remember. Celine Marcus crouched atop a collapsed concrete wall in the tangle of overgrown vines and rusted metal that had once been a highway overpass. Below her, the settlement of Cabway lay half buried in the wreckage of Alvarite occupation. Shanties made of scrap metal and plastic sheets clung to the cracked pillars, lanterns fashioned from salvaged fusion cells cast a pale, wavering glow. Only a few weeks ago, Cabway had been a labor camp like Leo's, miners and engineers forced to dig out rare minerals for alien starships. Now, after echoes of the first awakenings rippled across the globe, Kabwe was one of the first free enclaves. But freedom came at a price. The Alvari still patrolled the skies, and their fighters strafed the edges of the settlement at random. Desperation hung in the air like smoke. Celine checked her pulse rifle. It had belonged to a fallen Alvarite guard before its owner realized too late that the camp was no longer under alien control. She tapped the stock with her thumb, whispering to herself, "It still works." Beside her, two former camp engineers held homemade explosives wired to the bridge supports. Down below, civilians watched nervously, clutching crude spears and broken tools. They had no uniforms, no banners, only the fierce determination that came from remembering who they really were. "On my mark," Celine murmured. "Wait for the signal." She scanned the twilight sky. The Alvarite gunship would make its routine sweep in 2 minutes. Every patrol followed the same pattern. Vessels roared over the settlement, scanning for unauthorized activity, then roared off again, leaving only the scent of burning fuel. Celine had studied their movements, recorded their cadence, and pushed the settlement's final plan: strike first, hard, then disappear. Behind her, Adon Zyrix, a lanky engineer with a shock of black hair, gave a shaky thumbs up. "Ready." "Good," Celine said. She crept toward the detonator panel, 2 red buttons, one to arm, one to fire. She hesitated, heart pounding. The first missions were always the hardest. She thought of Leo's golden eyes, of the tremor that had unlocked the ancient power within humans everywhere. She wondered if he had been as scared as she was. "Mark," she whispered. Adon hit the arming button. The bridge creaked ominously. In the sky, a distant hum grew to a roar, and the Alvarite gunship dropped its landing gear and glided into view. Its silver hull reflected the dying sun, brilliant and cold. The craft's underside beamed scanning pulses across the settlement. Civilians froze in place, bracing for destruction. Celine scanned the scene, finger poised. Now. Adon slammed the fire button. 2 charges detonated at once. The bridge supports collapsed in a thunderous crash, sending plumes of dust and debris skyward. The gunship scanners lost their lock. Alarms blared as its autopilot fought to maintain altitude. From below, a hidden team of freed miners burst from the underpass, tall men and women whose eyes gleamed gold. They carried no heavy weapons, their fists crackled with raw energy. They surged up the rubble, scattering Alvari guards who had disembarked to investigate. One freed man, his name tag still reading, Sinclair, raised both hands, sending a shockwave that shattered the gunship's landing ramp. Alvarite soldiers stumbled back, armor cracking, before fleeing back to their crippled craft. Celine sprinted forward, rifle raised. She fired short controlled bursts at the Alvari who tried to regroup. Each shot tore through alien plating easily. Either the rifle had a glitch in its fusion cell or the power radiating from the awakened humans interfered with the Alvarite shields. Either way, the advantage lay with the rebels. Within minutes, the gunship sat crippled, forced to retreat on one damaged thruster. From the settlement, cheers rose. Children who had cowered in the shanties streamed into the open, waving improvised banners of ragged cloth. Women and men embraced, tears glistening in their faces. It was the first clear victory against the invaders since the occupation began. Celine allowed herself a moment of triumph, but she knew it couldn't last. The Alvari would respond swiftly and brutally. They would crush this uprising before it spread. But the rebellion had already lit a spark. News of Kabwe's victory would travel across Africa and into Europe, to the remnants of Leo's camp and beyond. Other enclaves would rise. As the gunship's dying engine sputtered into the sky, Celine climbed onto the rubble and raised her rifle high. "For our ancestors," she shouted. "For humanity." Her voice carried across the settlement, and every freed human who could stand raised a hand or weapon in salute. In that instant, they remembered not only their own awakening but the ancient legacy buried in their blood. It was a legacy of empires and dominance, of wars fought among the stars, now rekindled in the hearts of ordinary men and women. Later that night, around a flickering bonfire in the ruins of an old schoolyard, Celine and her council gathered maps and data. Sinclair and Adon laid out stockpiles of power cells and crude munitions. Draven Castus, the historian-turned-liaison, sent encrypted messages to hidden caches on Europa, and Elena Rourke, a former diplomat, forwarded Celine's report to Leo Varon via the Freed Mining Network. Each new enclave was another spark, and soon those sparks would ignite a conflagration across the globe. Celine traced her finger along the map, circling a series of abandoned Alvarite research sites in Central Africa. "They're gathering Paragon crystals," she said, voice low. "These are the ones that powered their shield arrays. If we keep them from refitting their weapons, we can hold them off long enough to train more Awakens." Adon frowned. "And when they realize?" "They'll send reinforcements," Celine replied. "But then we hit them again, harder, faster. Every victory attracts more of our kind. The Alvari can't fight a war they don't understand." Draven leaned forward, rubbing his jaw. "We're not just fighting a battle," he said. "We're reclaiming a destiny. Every victory proves that humans are the galaxy's original superpower. That's the message we send." Celine looked around at the ragtag group, miners, engineers, teachers, medics, all of them transformed into warriors by the same ancient code. She saw determination in their faces, the fierce courage born of remembering who they truly were. "Tonight, we celebrate," she said softly. "Tomorrow, we plan. And the day after, we revolt." The fire crackled, golden sparks dancing like embers of an ancient flame. In that moment, under the broken sky, humanity's spark of rebellion blazed to life, and nothing would ever be the same. Draven Castus stepped into the cavernous chamber beneath Europa's shattered archive, each footfall echoing against stone pillars carved with ancient glyphs. Flickering hollow projections danced on the walls, star dates from lost eras, star maps older than any living historian had ever studied. This was the vault Draven had discovered weeks earlier, hidden beneath layers of dust and rubble, where thousands of human ancestors lay in stasis. He paused before the first row of containment pods, translucent cylinders streaked with frost, each cradling a slumbering figure. Leviathan generators hummed low in the background, powering life support systems that had persisted through centuries. Draven swallowed, heart pounding. This moment felt like stepping across a threshold of myth into reality. Beside him, Elena Rourke stood tense, arms crossed. She was the Rebel Council's diplomat, used to negotiating with alien overlords, never waking ancient warriors. "We have clearance from the Council," she reminded Draven. "But are you sure this is wise? We barely understand what we're dealing with." Draven ran a hand through his graying hair. "We have no choice. The Alvari are mobilizing new fleets. Our modern tactics can only slow them down. We need the originals." He tapped his comlink. "Arya Lorne, initiate pod awakening protocol." A soft chime answered. From a nearby alcove, Nova Cell, a cybertech engineer, emerged carrying a cracked interface pad. On its screen, schematics for each pod glowed in shifting red and orange. Nova approached the control console and inserted the pad into a slot. "Initiating sequence," she said. Wires snaked from her pad into the console, and the hum of the generators deepened. A column of steam hissed up around the nearest pod. The frost peeled away like thin ice. Inside, a tall man with ash-gray skin and swirling tattoos clenched his fists. His eyes flickered open, glowing amber for a heartbeat before settling into a fierce, intelligent gleam. The man rose stiffly, muscles cracking back to life. He surveyed the chamber, voice low and gravelly. "Where are we?" Draven stepped forward. "Europa, beneath the archives. You were sealed here to preserve your memory and strength." The warrior's gaze slid to Elena. "I am Soren Vintai. And you presume to wake me for what purpose? Survival, Draven said simply. And victory. Humanity has been enslaved by the Alvari. We need you. Soren's lips curved into a faint, humorless smile. Enslavement? The Alvari? Children's tales, he flexed his arms, testing the strength in his limbs. Show me. Draven guided Soren to a tactical holomap hovering above a ruined lectern. On its surface, orange pins marked Alvarite strongholds. Reddening areas indicated recent human victories. We broke free in Argentina, in Africa. Now we fight a war across 24 worlds. But without you and others like you, we cannot hope to reclaim our legacy. Soren's eyes narrowed. He peered at the pins. And what of the cost? Before Draven could answer, another pod hissed open. A woman stepped out, cassia drawn, her armor etched with sigils of long-forgotten legions. She scanned the chamber with cold precision. I feel centuries of dust in my lungs, she said. Yet battle calls. Draven introduced each awakened warrior in turn, Soren Vintai, Cassia Dran, and 4 others whose names Draven recited from the council's records. Slowly, the chamber filled with giants, soldiers and strategists bred for conquest, their memories intact like live recordings beneath their skin. But celebration was tempered by tension. Cassia Dran confronted Soren. We are soldiers of Empire, she said, voice low. They have stolen our ships, our relics, our heritage. We will return and reclaim through fire. Diplomacy is for beggars. Soren's amber eyes flicked to Draven. And what do you say, historian? Do we burn the Alvari into ash, or do we temper our fury? Draven swallowed. He had studied them as relics, as data points, never as flesh and bone with fiercely held convictions. We need a balance, he said carefully. Pure wrath will unite some, but alien worlds will rally against us. We cannot become what we despise. Cassia laughed, a hollow, mirthless sound. You moderns preach ethics while our children starve. Give me war. Nova stepped forward. We have a plan that uses both your instinct and our tech. We'll hit the Alvari logistics hubs first, starvation and disarray before the assault on their fleets. Your ferocity will break their morale, our strategy ensures they can't recover. The ancient warriors exchanged glances. Soren nodded slowly. A sound approach, Cassia remained unconvinced, arms folded. Draven sensed the friction threatening the fragile alliance. He raised his hands. You were sealed to protect you, from enemies and from yourselves. But now we must trust in one another. Without your memories, we moderns would not know how to fight. Without our guidance, you might burn more than the Alvari. A tense silence fell. Then, Cassia turned away, studying the holomap. Very well, she said. We fight your way, for now. With Kasia's grudging assent, Draven released a slow breath. The council's hope rested on these ancient warriors, now uneasy allies. Over the next hours, the vault roared with activity. Engineers powered up dormant armories, scientists stabilized ancient weapon prototypes, the awakened warriors strapped on archaic but devastating arms, relics that pulsed with energy beyond Alvarite tech. Draven and Nova watched as casings were polished, as armor plates rejoined their frames, as battle plans were overlaid on new tactical maps. When at last the preparations were complete, Soren Vintai gathered around them. His amber gaze swept the chamber. We depart at dawn, he said. We strike the supply depot on Terra Navis. You lead the charge, Draven. Show us your modern tactics. Draven nodded, feeling the weight of history. Elena placed a hand on his shoulder. You'll do fine, she said quietly. We need this victory, to prove that our alliance can work. Outside, the vault doors rumbled open. Dawn's pale light filtered down the corridors, illuminating the determined faces of both ancient and modern humans. Together, they marched toward the surface, and into the next phase of humanity's resurgence. In the fading shadows of Europe's ice fields, a new tide of vengeance was rising, and this time, it carried both the fury of forgotten warlords and the cunning of contemporary rebels. Soon, the Alvari would learn that when humans remembered their legacy, no fortress could hold, no weapon could stop them, and no alliance would fracture their purpose. The orbital ring of Tierra Nova hung like a shattered halo around the planet's equator, its steel segments gleaming against the blackness of space. Once a marvel of human engineering, it had been repurposed as the Alvarite Empire's most formidable stronghold, a circular fortress bristling with railguns, plasma turrets, and electronic jammers that blanketed Earth below in silence. Now it was humanity's next target. Kala Rin crouched at a terminal deep within the ring's maintenance corridors, her fingers dancing over a holographic interface. She was a cyber-tactician of unmatched skill, born to crack firewalls and bend alien code to her will, but this was the greatest hack she'd ever attempted. Thrumming power conduits lined the ceiling, pulsing with energy drawn from Terra Nova's fusion reactors. Every second counted. "I've bypassed the external security loop," Kala whispered into her comlink. "But I still need 5 minutes to flood the control node with our virus." Her voice remained calm, measured, even as her heart hammered in her chest. Around her, 2 engineers, Mira Kovac and Han Jian, tended power regulators, ensuring the data line stayed live. "We've got cover," Draven Castus's voice came through, crackling with static. "Kala, as soon as you give the go, we storm the ring's docking bay. Soren Vintai and Kasia Dran will lead the ground assault." Draven's optimism shone through the comlink, but Kala heard the tension beneath it. The orbital ring was a citadel built to withstand planetary bombardment. If their hack failed, thousands would die. Kala's fingers lurched. "Virus ready," she paused, inhaling. "Releasing now." A pulse of violet code surged through the network, slipping past encryption and firewall like liquid light. Screens flickered in the maintenance corridor, readouts sputtered, alarms rang out, and energy barriers shimmered before collapsing. A low groan of metal on metal echoed through the ring as automated defenses powered down. "We're clear," Kala announced. "Get to the bay." In the docking bay, Draven and the ancient warriors waited on a rickety platform overlooking the ring's central axis. Soren Vintai stood tall, armor plates etched with bioluminescent runes that pulsed with anticipation. Kasia Dran flexed her fingers, her gaze cold and unyielding. Around them, hundreds of modern soldiers readied weapons and hover packs, bracing for the drop. The bay's massive doors ground open, revealing the void beyond and the distant curve of Earth. Troops clambered into drop shuttles, while Soren and Kasia climbed onto the loading ramp of a battered but functional human destroyer. Draven offered a nod. "On my mark." "Mark," he shouted, voice booming. Gravity reversed as thrusters engaged, propelling them into the emptiness. The ring's automated turrets still spun to life, targeting the incoming shuttles, but the virus had overridden their systems. Guns misfired into the hull, while sensor arrays blinked blank. Within seconds, the human force passed through the ring's outer defenses and into the heart of the stronghold. Inside, the corridors were a twisted labyrinth of gleaming panels and harsh white lights. Droplets of lubricant hissed from cracked pipes, the hum of dying machines filled the air. Kala's virus rippled through the ring's core systems, keeping reinforcements offline. Now the human tide advanced. Draven led the charge, shotgun in hand, side by side with Soren and Kasia. They cleared the first security station in seconds. Soren's fists battered down armored doors, sending Alvarite guards flying. Kasia's blade carved through energy shields as though they were paper. Draven's modern tactics coordinated the flows of movement. Teams swept left, then right, isolating pockets of resistance. They reached the central command hub, a vast chamber dominated by a holographic war table. Commander Zalris, the Alvarite overseer of the ring, stood before it in full battle regalia, his silver skin marred by dark scorch marks, his maw set in a cruel grin. Behind him, consoles and monitors flickered back to life, struggling against Kala's virus. You think you can take back your precious Earth? Zalrus snarled, voice amplified by speakers. This ring is the keystone of our empire. Without it, your rebellion is meaningless. Soren stepped forward, amber eyes blazing. We've already reclaimed what we were born to rule, he said. Now we finish what we started, his voice echoed in the cavernous space. Zalrus lifted a gauntlet hand and pressed a panel on his gauntlet. Overhead, hidden vents hissed, releasing a cloud of alvarite neurogas. Soldiers choked, collapsing to the deck. Draven felt tears sting his eyes. He raised his shotgun, firing concussion rounds at the vents. They exploded, scattering shards and dispelling the gas. Cassia threw herself at Zalrus. Blades flashed as weapon met armor, sparks flew. Zalrus snarled, summoning alien power to his fists. He drove Cassia back with a punch that cracked the reinforced floor. Soren intervened, tackling the commander and slamming him into a console. Zalrus staggered, claws ripping through his gauntlet. Draven seized the moment. Kala, disable battlefield shields, he barked. Over the comlink, Kala triggered the final phase of her virus. The ring's protective shield shimmered and died, leaving the entire structure exposed to Earth's orbital defenses. Outside, every human destroyer and sharp-wing fighter opened fire. Fusion beams lanced through the ring's frame, tearing gashes in its hull. The station groaned, metal buckling. But inside, the battle continued. Cassia grappled with Zalrus, her sword at his throat. Yield, she hissed, breath ragged. Your empire ends here. Zalrus spat blood. Never. Soren wrenched Zalrus off balance, and Draven raised his shotgun. He hesitated. The commander was wounded, but alive. Months ago, Draven might have pulled the trigger. But that was before they had learned restraint. Before they understood that vengeance alone would not secure their future. He lowered his weapon. Zalrus's eyes widened. You let me live, he rasped. You are foolish. Kasia's blade hovered. We are merciful, she said. We are just, she withdrew her sword, stepping back. In that instant, the ring's core reactors began to overload. Kala's virus had triggered a failsafe. Ventilation ducts opened, flooding the chamber with red warning lights. The floor vibrated like an earthquake. Evacuate, Draven shouted. We can't stop the meltdown. Troops surged for the ramps. Soren scooped up Cassia, carrying her over his shoulder. Draven grabbed Zalrus by the arm, pulling him along. Move, he yelled. The central hub doors exploded outward as fusion conduits ruptured. They raced down the corridor, heat roaring behind them like a beast. Panels collapsed, sparks rained, and the entire stronghold began to break apart. They reached the docking bay just as the ring fractured across its circumference. Fragments of metal and debris spun away, igniting in the atmosphere. Drop shuttles and destroyers blasted free, departing in a hail of thrusters. Draven and his companions clambered aboard the human destroyer. Soren guided the vessel away, watching the ring's segments tumble into Earth's orbit like broken teeth. Below, the planet gleamed with renewed hope. In the aftermath, humanity had struck a decisive blow. The orbital ring was no more. The Alvarite Empire's grip on Earth, once absolute, was shattered. But as they regrouped in orbit, Draven looked around at his allies, ancient warriors whose savage power had tempered into disciplined strength, modern rebels who had learned to fight with both courage and conscience. Kala's voice crackled over the comlink. We got the data cores. We can replicate the virus for other Alvarite stations. Her tone was triumphant, but weary. Draven allowed himself a small smile. Good work. Next, we take back our skies, our systems, one stronghold at a time. Soren Vintai clasped Draven's shoulder. Today, we proved that storm and strategy together can topple empires. Cassia Drawn nodded, her blade glinting in the port's floodlights. And tomorrow, we reclaim our throne. Below them, Earth's surface pulsed with the fires of rebellion as liberated cities cheered, the storm of legacy had arrived. The vessel of triumph loomed above Earth like a fallen god, its towering spires of black alloy and cobalt glass reflecting the planet's blues and greens. Once the flagship of the Alvarite Empire, it now drifted crippled in geostationary orbit, a royal carcass waiting to be seized. Leo Varon stared at its silhouette from the bridge of the Dawnbringer, humanity's reclaimed destroyer. Beside him, Kala Ren monitored tactical feeds, her fingers poised over the hollow controls. "We're in position," Kala whispered. "The gravity anchors are unstable, this ship could be ours in minutes." Her eyes, bright with calculation, flicked to Leo. "Ready?" Leo nodded, passion igniting in his golden gaze. Ever since the awakening began, he'd wrestled with doubt, could he stand as humanity's champion? But today, he would claim his birthright. "We take the spine corridor," he said. "Kala, disable the external shields. Soren and Kasia lead the boarding teams. I'll join you in the command spire." Below them, drop shuttles detached and plunged toward the vessel's open hangar bays. Plasma thrusters flared as boarding lines unspooled. Within seconds, Kala's virus had shut down the vessel's outer defenses, and the Dawnbringer shuttles slipped past automated turrets like shadows. Leo and Kala descended in one of the last shuttles. Turbulence rocked the cabin as electromagnetic fields tore at their hull. Leo gripped the rail, steadying himself. Beside him, Kala's braid whipped to the side. "Almost there," she said. The shuttle docked with a grinding clang. Red emergency lights bathed the corridor as airlocks hissed open. The smell of ozone and scorched metal filled their nostrils. Beyond the doors, the vessel's spine corridor stretched in both directions, endless walkways suspended above a swirling plasma core. Soren Vintai and Kasia Drawn materialized at the corridor's entrance, flanked by 2 squads of awakened warriors. Soren's amber eyes glowed with fierce pride, Kasia's blade gleamed coldly. Together, they formed an unbreakable wedge. "Follow us," Soren said. His voice rumbled off the corridor walls. "We clear these halls in minutes." They advanced. Every step echoed. Plasma coils hummed beneath transparent grates in the floor, churning energy that powered the vessel. A dozen Alvarite Marines emerged from side chambers, rifles raised. Kasia leapt forward, blade spinning. She struck one Marine's armor seam, slicing it apart in a shower of sparks. Soren grabbed another by the chest plate and hurled him into the plasma core, his scream cut short by sizzling metal. Leo pressed forward, awakening the power within. His hands crackled with molten light, with a twist of his wrist, he unleashed a wave that flattened 2 more Marines against the corridor walls. Kala stayed close, scanning for turret control panels. She tapped one with a device. "Shields are down. Internal defenses offline." They reached the crossroads where the spine corridor intersected with the Lord's Passage, the route to the command spire. 6 Alvarite knights in heavy armor barred their way, electrolances raised. The knights formed a lethal phalanx, crackling arcs of energy dancing along their weapons. Soren growled. "Let me," he surged forward, moving faster than sight. The knights' lances swept, but Soren dodged through the gaps, his fists breaking lances and armor with bone-crushing force. One by one, they fell, their bodies crashing like statues. In the chaos, Leo seized the moment. He flung glowing shards of energy into the control panel at the intersection, triggering a concussive explosion that sent 2 more knights sprawling. Kala jammed the last knight's lance and ripped it free, dismantling its power core. With the barrier gone, they sprinted down the Lord's Passage. The walls narrowed, lit by sputtering tubes. Distant alarms wailed. Dust and debris drifted through the air. They reached the command spire elevator, a glass-fronted lift overlooking the core. "Elevators locked," Kala said, scanning the panel. "I need 30 seconds to override." Leo crouched, bracing himself for an assault. Behind them, more Alvarite reinforcements clattered up the passage, weapons drawn. Casings dropped. Battle cries echoed. Leo's jaw set. He raised both hands, summoning the ancient power. A golden shockwave rippled outward, knocking reinforcements off their feet, sending sparks dancing across the corridor. Kala worked the override. Done, she said. Doors open. They piled into the elevator just as more knights charged. The doors hissed shut. The lift shot upward, rattling on its rails. Below, the corridor erupted in chaos. Soren and Kasia crested the walkway, ready to hold the line. Inside the lift, Kala called down, "You two okay?" Leo clasped his hand over the panel. "We're clear. Move up." The elevator halted at the spire's apex. The doors slid open to a chamber vast as a cathedral. Crystalline consoles arranged in concentric circles surrounded a polished obsidian dais. At its center stood Commander Zaurus, his armor scorched, his crest torn, but he stood tall, a dark silhouette against the planet-sweeping viewport. "You've come," Zaurus said, voice echoing. "You think you can claim my throne?" Leo stepped forward, golden light shimmering around him. "This galaxy belongs to humanity," his voice was calm but thunderous. "And I am its heir." Zaurus laughed, a harsh, grating sound. He raised his gauntlet, charging violet energy. "Then prove it." They clashed. Leo leapt, fists of raw power striking Zaurus's chest plate. The commander staggered, claws flashing. He countered with a blast of dark energy that threw Leo against the consoles. Kala ducked behind a pillar, hacking the dais controls, her goal, to reroute the vessel's power grid into a gigantic energy sphere they could channel through Leo. Zaurus advanced, every step shaking the spire. "You are a child playing with fire," he roared. Leo rose, golden eyes blazing. He took a slow breath, summoned every ounce of his awakened legacy. The spire's power conduits thrummed in sympathy. Kala's frantic keystrokes synced with Leo's resonance. The obsidian dais glowed, veins of light pulsing outward. Inside the elevator shaft, Draven's voice crackled on the comlink, "We're shutting down the reactor cascade. If you don't stabilize the core, the entire ship will implode." Leo heard it. Stakes soared. He nodded to Kala. Now, she hit the final sequence. The dais erupted in blinding light, a funnel of golden energy rising toward the ceiling like a miniature sun. Leo extended both arms, absorbing the flow. Zaurus lunged, but his strike was swallowed in the pillar of light. Leo's hands expanded it, compressing the energy into a sphere. "For humanity," Leo whispered. He hurled the sphere at Zaurus. It struck the commander's armor with a thunderclap, enveloping him in pure light. Zaurus screamed, body dissolving into brilliant streaks before vanishing. When the light faded, only scorched armor lay on the dais. Kala exhaled. "He's gone." Outside, the vessel shuddered. The reactor cascade shut down gracefully, controlled by Draven's team. Containment walls sealed. The spire doors opened to reveal Soren, Kasia, and squads of awakened warriors pouring in, weapons raised. Leo stood on the dais, light fading from his skin. He looked out the viewport at Earth, blue and green, finally free from oppression. Kala joined him, placing a hand on his shoulder. "You did it," she said softly. Leo closed his eyes, letting relief wash over him. "We did it," he corrected. "All of us." Below, the Dawnbringer's comms lit up with cheers. Humanity's forces pledged fealty to the new leader on the obsidian dais. Through the glass, the stars seemed to shine brighter. And so, on the vessel of triumph reclaimed, Leo Varan proclaimed humanity's return to the galaxy. Their empire would rise again, not as conquerors, but as protectors of worlds they had once forgotten. The throne of destiny had been claimed, and the galaxy would never be the same.